Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. In Brave New World, Aldous Huxley presents a dystopian future where technology, conditioning, and state control have created a seemingly perfect society. Human beings are engineered and divided into castes, from the intelligent alphas to the menial epsilons. Individuality and emotion are suppressed in favor of societal stability, pleasure, and consumption. The population is kept docile through the use of a drug called soma and through the conditioning of pleasure and conformity. The protagonist, Bernard Marx, begins to question the superficiality of this world. His encounter with John, the savage, who was raised outside the world state, challenges the foundations of this controlled utopia, leading to a tragic confrontation between freedom and stability. Let's deep dive into the book. The world state and social conditioning. In Brave New World, society is governed by the world state, a totalitarian regime that controls every aspect of human life. People are no longer born naturally, but are engineered in hatcheries and divided into castes, from the intelligent alphas to the subservient epsilons. From birth, citizens are conditioned through sleep teaching, hypnopedia, to accept their social roles, embrace consumption, and avoid critical thinking. Individuality is suppressed, and emotions like love and grief are considered disruptive. The state promotes hedonism, encouraging people to seek pleasure through shallow entertainment, casual sex, and the drug soma, which provides an escape from any negative emotions. Bernard Marx's alienation. Bernard Marx, an alpha, feels alienated in this society despite his high caste. Unlike other alphas, Bernard is physically smaller and lacks the confidence expected of his status. He feels out of place in the world state, where individuality is discouraged, and his desire for genuine connection sets him apart from his peers. Bernard is troubled by the superficiality of the society around him, especially the emptiness of its values. His growing dissatisfaction with the world state's lack of freedom and his distaste for the constant pursuit of pleasure lead him to question the system, though he is unsure how to express his discontent. Lenina and Bernard's trip to the savage reservation. Lenina Crown, a beta who works in the hatchery, represents the ideal citizen of the world state, obedient, pleasure-seeking, and uninterested in questioning the status quo. She begins a casual relationship with Bernard, but she struggles to understand his discontent with their society. Hoping to impress Lenina and escape the suffocating control of the world state, Bernard arranges a trip to the savage reservation, one of the few remaining places where people live according to old, uncivilized ways. The reservation is a stark contrast to the world state, with its natural birth, religion, and human suffering. Meeting John the Savage. On the savage reservation, Bernard and Lenina encounter John, a man born to a world state citizen named Linda, but raised among the savages. John is an outcast in both worlds, rejected by the native society due to his mother's promiscuity and by the world state due to his natural birth. Unlike the citizens of the world state, John has read Shakespeare, and he values concepts like love, honor, and freedom, which the world state has long abandoned. Fascinated by John's unique perspective, Bernard decides to bring him and his mother back to London, hoping to use John as a means of gaining social status. John's reaction to the world state. Upon arriving in London, John is initially amazed by the technology and order of the world state, but he quickly becomes disgusted by its moral emptiness and lack of individuality. He is horrified by the citizens' constant reliance on soma to numb their emotions and the absence of meaningful relationships or art. His mother, Linda, immediately succumbs to the pleasures of soma, further deepening John's disillusionment. John's rejection of the world state's values brings him into conflict with its citizens, including Lenina, who is confused by his desire for genuine love rather than casual sex. His deep sense of alienation grows as he realizes that he cannot fit into this world. Bernard's rise and fall. John's presence in London makes Bernard temporarily popular, as people are eager to meet the savage. Bernard revels in his newfound status, enjoying the attention and validation he receives. However, this success is short-lived, as John increasingly rejects the world state's shallow culture, refusing to participate in the spectacle Bernard creates around him. As Bernard loses control over John, his social standing begins to crumble. The experience exposes Bernard's hypocrisy. Though he initially criticizes the world state, he is willing to exploit it for personal gain when given the opportunity. His fall from grace underscores the difficulty of challenging a powerful, conformist society. John's struggle with Lenina. John develops feelings for Lenina, but he is torn between his ideals of love and the world state's promiscuous values, which Lenina embodies. When Lenina attempts to seduce John, believing that their attraction should naturally lead to sex, John reacts violently, calling her a whore and rejecting her advances. His outburst reflects the deep conflict between his values, shaped by Shakespeare's idealized view of love and the world state's casual approach to relationships. John's inability to reconcile these conflicting worldviews drives him further into isolation and despair, as he realizes that he cannot find a place for his ideals in the world state. The confrontation with Mustafa Mond. John, Bernard, and Helmholtz Watson, another disillusioned alpha, are brought before Mustafa Mond, one of the world controllers, for a final confrontation. Mond explains the philosophy behind the world state's control, revealing that stability and happiness are prioritized above all else, even at the cost of freedom, individuality, and truth. Art, science, and religion have been sacrificed to prevent conflict and unhappiness. Mond admits that the world state's values are shallow, but insists that this is necessary to maintain social order. John argues that suffering, struggle, and personal growth are essential to being fully human, but Mond dismisses these ideals as dangerous and destabilizing. John's retreat and tragic end. Unable to accept the world state's artificial happiness and the loss of individual freedom, John retreats to a remote location to live in solitude. He tries to purify himself through self-flagellation, hoping to atone for what he sees as his moral failures. However, his isolation attracts attention, and soon crowds of people, eager to witness the savage, disturb his peace. Overwhelmed by the intrusion and his inability to escape the oppressive influence of the world state, John ultimately takes his own life. His tragic end serves as a final rejection of the society he cannot reconcile with, symbolizing the impossibility of true freedom in the dystopian world. The world state's triumph. The novel ends with the world state firmly in control, its citizens continuing to live in a state of blissful ignorance, content with their soma, pleasure, and stability. John's death is a testament to the overwhelming power of the regime, which ensures that dissent is either absorbed or eliminated. Bernard and Helmholtz are exiled to remote islands, where they can live with others who seek individuality, but their removal from society indicates that the world state tolerates no disruption to its carefully maintained order. Huxley's bleak vision warns of the dangers of sacrificing freedom, creativity, and individuality for the sake of stability and control. Let's meet together the main characters of the book. Bernard Marx is an alpha who feels alienated in the highly controlled society of the world state. Although he is part of the elite caste, his smaller physical stature and critical thinking set him apart from other alphas. Bernard is dissatisfied with the superficial pleasures of the world state and longs for deeper meaning and connection. He becomes briefly popular after bringing John the Savage to London, but his hypocrisy and insecurity are revealed as he exploits his newfound status. Ultimately, Bernard is exiled to an island, a fate that reflects his failure to fully rebel against the society he despises. John, often referred to as the Savage, is the son of a world state citizen, but was raised on the Savage Reservation. He is deeply influenced by Shakespeare and holds values that are alien to the world state, such as love, honor, and individuality. John is both fascinated and horrified by the world state, rejecting its shallow pleasures and lack of moral depth. His struggle to reconcile his ideals with the reality of the dystopian world leads to his emotional and psychological breakdown. John's tragic end symbolizes the incompatibility of true humanity with a society that sacrifices individuality and truth for stability. Mustafa Mond is one of the world controllers, responsible for maintaining order in the world state. He is an intelligent and pragmatic leader who understands the sacrifices that have been made to create societal stability. Mond explains to John that the world state has eliminated conflict, suffering, and unhappiness by suppressing individuality, creativity, and freedom. Although he once pursued scientific truth and freedom himself, Mond chose to serve the world state, believing that it is better to ensure collective happiness than to allow the chaos of individuality. His character represents the moral and philosophical compromises made by those in power to maintain control. Lenina Crown is a beta in the world state and a symbol of the perfect conditioned citizen. She embraces the values of the society, seeking pleasure through casual sex, soma, and shallow entertainment. Lenina struggles to understand Bernard's dissatisfaction and is confused by John's rejection of her advances. Despite her programming, Lenina is drawn to the idea of romance and deeper connections, though she is ultimately unable to break free from the conditioning of the world state. Her character represents the conflict between biological urges and societal conditioning, as well as the difficulty of escaping a life of superficial contentment. Helmholtz Watson is an alpha and a friend of Bernard Marx. Unlike Bernard, Helmholtz is physically and intellectually superior, but he too feels dissatisfied with the world state. As a writer, he longs to create meaningful and powerful works of art, but the restrictions of the world state prevent him from doing so. Helmholtz's desire for individuality and creative expression aligns him with John, and the two bond over their shared rejection of the world state's values. In the end, Helmholtz is exiled to an island, where he hopes to find the freedom to pursue his creative potential. Linda is John's mother and a former citizen of the world state who was stranded on the Savage Reservation after a trip gone wrong. She is unable to adapt to the ways of the reservation and longs for the pleasures of the world state, particularly soma. When she returns to London with John, she succumbs to her addiction to soma, using it to escape the pain of her existence. Linda's tragic fate highlights the dehumanizing effects of the world state, as she is unable to cope with life without the shallow comforts of the dystopian society. Let's explore together the main themes and concepts of the book. The dangers of totalitarianism. Brave New World is a cautionary tale about the dangers of totalitarianism. The world state controls every aspect of human life, from reproduction to thought, ensuring that its citizens are obedient, content, and incapable of rebellion. The novel explores how technological advancements and social conditioning can be used to strip people of their individuality and critical thinking skills, leaving them complacent and easy to control. Through the world state, Huxley warns against the loss of personal freedom and the dehumanizing effects of a society that values stability and pleasure above all else. The sacrifice of individuality. One of the central themes in Brave New World is the sacrifice of individuality in the name of societal stability. The world state's caste system and conditioning programs ensure that people are perfectly suited to their predetermined roles, eliminating personal ambition, creativity, and the desire for change. Citizens are discouraged from forming deep emotional bonds, and any form of individual expression is seen as a threat to social order. Huxley critiques the idea that happiness and conformity can be manufactured, showing that true fulfillment requires freedom, individuality, and the ability to experience both joy and suffering. The role of technology in society. Huxley explores how technology can be used to control and manipulate society in Brave New World. Advances in genetic engineering, psychological conditioning, and mind-altering drugs like soma are all tools the world state uses to maintain power. The novel critiques the potential for technology to be used not to improve human life, but to suppress individuality and free thought. Huxley's vision of a future where people are engineered and controlled through technology reflects his concerns about the misuse of scientific progress and the loss of humanity in the face of technological domination. Happiness versus truth. In Brave New World, the pursuit of happiness is prioritized over the pursuit of truth. The world state ensures that its citizens are constantly happy by eliminating suffering, conflict, and the need for deep thought. However, this happiness comes at the cost of personal freedom, truth, and genuine human connection. John the Savage argues that true happiness can only come from experiencing both the highs and lows of life, including pain, struggle, and sacrifice. The novel presents a complex question. Is it better to live in a world where everyone is happy but unfree, or in a world where truth and individuality are valued, even if it leads to suffering? The loss of humanity. Throughout the novel, Huxley explores the loss of humanity in a society that values stability over everything else. The world state's citizens have been conditioned to suppress their emotions, desires, and individuality, reducing them to little more than cogs in a machine. Art, literature, religion, and love, all aspects of human life that give it meaning, have been discarded in favor of superficial pleasure and consumption. John the Savage represents a different vision of humanity, one that embraces suffering, emotion, and individuality. His inability to survive in the world state reflects the incompatibility of true human experience with the sterile, controlled environment of the dystopia. Let's talk about the author. Aldous Huxley, born in 1894 in England, was a prolific writer and intellectual known for his novels, essays, and philosophical works. His most famous novel, Brave New World, 1932, is a dystopian vision of a future society where technological advancements are used to suppress individuality and maintain control over the population. Huxley's work often explored themes of social control, human nature, and the dangers of scientific progress without ethical consideration. Throughout his career, Huxley also wrote on topics such as mysticism, philosophy, and psychedelic experiences. His works remain influential in discussions of dystopian literature and societal critique. Huxley died in 1963. Sincere thanks for watching. If you found this summary helpful, consider taking a moment to hit the subscribe button, like or share the video. If you have any feedbacks or book requests, make sure to leave a comment. Regardless, I wish you a great day.